Hello, heathens.
Hello, Heathens.
Hello, friends. Um, we're back.
We
And
back.
sorry, I had a little glitch moment there because I was like, what do I say? Words are hard. It's
I'm sorry, not all functioning on the same level.
nope. We're having misconnections. We're firing on two different levels.
We're firing. We just don't know where we're going to.
Yeah, that's more accurate. It is so freaking nice in Michigan today. When this comes out, it'll be what, the 25th. We're recording on the 18th of July, and it is beautiful outside
At 1, 2, 3, 4.
at 1, 2, 3, 4. Woohoo, go us. We are continuing with our astrology series, and today we are talking about Venus and Mars in your natal chart.
Yes.
And there is actually, again, a lot I didn't know, and I'm excited to talk about, I guess, the word I'm going to use, I don't know if it's exactly what I want to say, but I'm going to say the controversy behind Mars because
Ooh, controversy.
controversial. There's just, Nicole said it best before the podcast about how a lot of these, once you start realizing what these signs like mean and like how you can use them, we need to be using them to in the best possible way, essentially, instead of being once again victims to our lives.
Absolutely. Like that's the thing is like we really need to take a handle of this and take our power back on the fact that like just because it's scary, we think it's been scary or wrong, or it's going to disrupt our life in some way, that if we ignore it, and we know that this isn't true, but like if we ignore it, it'll go away or somehow not happen, right? Like
Right,
you're not going to have conflict in your life if I ignore it and am just passive about it, right? And we know that that's not true. We
right.
know that you're going to have like conflict and places where you need courage and growth and passion and all that kind of stuff. And if we look, especially in your natal chart, if you can get a handle on where your Mars is, then you know where you will be inherently easy for you and inherently hard for you. And if it's hard for you, you can go, okay, so if these things are hard for me, then I'm going to need this, this, and this to make them easier, to either make me enjoy what I'm doing because I have to, or, like I don't want to do my taxes. It's not one of the things that I want to do. It's very mundane. It is like gouging my eyes out. Like I don't want to do it. So if I know this about myself, then maybe I can set up like get really cool pens, or I like to organize. So maybe get a really cool organizing system and the way I do it to make it either more aesthetically pleasing or some sort of like pleasing factor of it.
Yes. Yeah. Makes it so much better.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that there are ways to work around it, essentially, right? Like, for a good example, my Mars is in Libra and it's in the eighth house, but it's supposed to be not happy there in Libra. And in the eighth house, it's all about friends and family. And it's like, oh, you can have issues with your family and like issues with like abuse, things like that. And it's like,
I don't think that's the eighth house. That's the seventh house.
did I say that wrong? Because I think that is what I read. Yeah, my Mars is in Libra in the eighth house, and yeah, it's a huge influence on friends in your life, is what it says. And a lot of that's where I read the transformation in like your home life and with your family, and it's not in a good position for relationships. So, like, in that comes the helpfulness of that is knowing, okay, that makes sense as to why that things in my life have happened. But instead of being like, oh, it's all Mars's fault. It's all Mars's fault for being in Libra. It's like, well, I can either take that, know that that's there, and like work with it, right?
Hmm.
And like then, and for me, that requires therapy of being like able to work through trauma so that I don't continue to stay on the same path of like trauma.
Well, and that's the thing is like you can either pass it down and throw all your trauma around, or you can stop it with yourself. You because ultimately you are responsible for it. So you can either pass it on to somebody else because you don't want to deal with it, or you can like heal it and help people heal their own at the same time.
Absolutely. Alrighty. So where would you like to start, Nicole? Do you want to start with Mars or do you want to start with Venus?
Uh, well, let's start with the God of War.
Okay.
Just because I feel like Venus, we love her, right? Like she's
Yeah.
beauty, she's, sexuality, she's feminine. Like, so I want to kind of savor her for last.
She is beauty, she is grace.
Right. So I want to start with the God of War because I think we really need to have a somewhat of a different understanding on like what's been preached and what we inherently know about it as well. So we tried to look for we tried to look for like a backstory on Mars because Venus has like it's not a great backstory, but there's a backstory
Yeah.
of like how she was created.
Yes.
It's not a great one, but there's a story. So,
It's there.
right, I could not find anything on um Mars's creation story.
Yeah, no, me neither. And they said that there's not a lot of like backstory until they get to like the classical understanding, which is like the Roman god Mars.
Mhm. Mhm.
But other than that, there's like some shoddy like what's the word I'm looking for? Characterizations or like things that they think happened or how it happened, but there's nothing really good, so nobody really uses it because they don't really know.
Right. Well, in Romans we know that they used the god Mars as one of their main deities that they uh honored. Which
Hmm.
kind of makes sense because Mars was or the Romans were very good at armies and taking over lands. Like we know that at one point they were very good at all of that, dominating kind of thing.
Well,
What?
war, like
War,
wa, wa.
wa.
Yeah, they actually believe that the god Mars protected their city.
Right. Um, so when you're looking at this in your house, or in your astrology chart, your natal chart, this is where we would find where it'd be very easy for you to have like passion and activity. These are what we're going to use it for. Plus, this is also a place where, depending on how you're utilizing it, it can cause separation because we got to think of like Mars as that war element where it's conflict and separation.
Hmm.
We're also reminded of like the red, the blood, that's where passion comes from, the passion for life, the passion for just being in your body. This is also very good for police officers, soldiers, and athletes, which athletes I didn't even think about.
Me neither.
Um, and for masculinity. Masculinity? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Also,
Yeah,
your
sure.
sex drive lives here too,
Yes. Yep.
which you would think, or I would think, it's in your Venus, but it's not.
Yeah, I guess I would probably associate. It's interesting because now we're separating sex into like not only desire, which is not necessarily the act of sex, but like Mars being the act of it, like that's where you're
Yeah.
putting in the energy and all that kind of stuff, right? Like,
Well, yeah, it makes sense because if you guys stop thinking about Mars as your anger planet, just your anger planet, and you start thinking about it also as like the main thing being action, then like it really makes a lot more sense, right? Because I'm like,
mm-hmm.
I have to start thinking like that.
Well, and I think especially with anger, I think anger is very much that thing that we don't want. We're not, it's not very, especially in this day and age, we all don't want to be a Karen. Like, we don't want to, like, it's a very, like, you're not supposed to, even though we talk about how healthy it is for anger to be expressed and it needs to be expressed. And if you think about it, anger is really that shield that we put up because we're scared and vulnerable.
Yeah.
So if you get angry at a place, it's always at a place where you think you're not going to get what you need. Um, and of course, we project these different like we know logically that like if I'm in the Starbucks line and they're out of something, it's not going to be the end of the world. But that anger still kind of like rises up. And I believe anger to be one of those things that builds up until it like explodes.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't, just because you stuff it down doesn't mean it goes away. So, um, and I find that being around a lot of women, I find that we hide a lot of our angers because that's just not attractive
Yeah.
in a woman. Um, we're okay when it's expressed through the masculinity. Like we're okay with that. Of course, we don't want it to be toxic or anything like that, but it's like, oh, it's fine. Let him blow off some steam. It's acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like as women, we're not allowed to have those moments. We're not allowed to be ungraceful. We're not supposed to have that raw um energy that comes from. And the funny thing is that we as a collective have been victims to a lot of things for a very long time, or at least shown that way, right?
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to kind of balance out. So I really think if we took our Mars and Venuses together and really try to like work with them to balance out not only the active side but the receptive side as well, I think that might be a very interesting way of like expressing that kind of energy.
Heck yeah, especially because like we did the podcast last year about anger, and one of the big things too is like how anger can be when you redirect it and you use the power for, good for you, essentially. Who cares?
Hmm.
Who gives a shit what other people think is good for you? It's about you and what you think is good for you. You can get some shit done. That shit kicks in and I'm fucking
Absolutely.
pissed. I'm piss cleaning. Now my house is like
I know,
clean as
right?
hell. And I wasn't mad about cleaning it because I was mad about something else. And I'm over here like, fuck this shit. I'm throwing shit in the trash and I'm cleaning aggressively and everything's done.
Hmm.
Done faster than when I'm doing it happy.
Right, right. It's that we really can see how that kind of thing makes you active because we're so passive about it and it's almost like we have to be passive about it. But when it builds up and it wants to be expressed, like it's coming out and like now, this does not mean that you get to be cruel. There's a
No.
big difference between anger and expressing your anger and cruelty.
Mhm.
And that's where we need to find um that's where we need to find like a either a verbiage or a way to tell people like look, danger, danger, like I'm in a danger mode and I need some space because if not it's going to be projected right at you and I don't mean it to be, right? Like,
Right.
so if you're okay with being yelled at, then please stay.
Please talk to me.
Right, please stay. Please stay and let me rant and rave and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Um, Mars rules Aries and then also Scorpio in the traditional astrology.
Yes.
Because in traditional astrology, there was only 7 planets. And also in astrology, you have what they call the personal planets, which is your quick planets. So these would be Mercury, Venus, Mars. I don't know if Jupiter and Saturn are part of that, right? They're
Mm-mm.
slower planets, so they
Yeah.
take. So your slower planets are going to be more of your generational stuff. So, like in my generation, all of my Jupiter, Saturn, and beyond are going to have those kind of attributes. So that's
Mhm.
where we go. Like millennials are like this, Generation X is like this,
Yes.
boomers are like this. That's where we get all of those things, is there.
Yeah. I also have that Mars hovers in a single zodiac sign for an average of 7 weeks, which I didn't know.
Yeah, so it changes less than 2 months. So it changes every 2 months, less
Yeah.
than.
Like probably around there.
Yeah. And did you pick up anything on Mars being a retrograde? Like what that would.
So, yes, but no. I have it in here. Let me find it really quick.
I know I did ask Chat GPT. Sorry. Now the thing about astrology is you kind of have to talk about what is beside it and what it's in, because it's not just one layer of like this is the way Mars is. It depends on what house it's in and what sign it's in, because those two things will make it either like it's like its birthday and it's a special guest and we give it all its things and it's so powerful, like whatever it says we do. Or you put it in the back corner in the basement and you're like, don't you come out of here, and never, like, it's not very happy in it. So it can be less powerful. So you might feel like a little more lazy or that kind of thing, depending on where it's at in your chart.
Yeah, 100%. What the only thing I really have is it's not a lot, but it says Mars turns retrograde once every 2 years for a span of approximately 2.5 months. And it's not that unusual to be born with this planet in reverse, but you may have to work harder to muscle through its lessons. But once you nail the planet's energy, your additional efforts may actually lead to a rock solid mastery of working with Mars in your life.
So these are the things that we can, because I have a retrograde in my fourth house, which is governs the home, family, roots, and your private life. It represents your foundation, your upbringing, and emotional security. And then my fourth house, so the fourth house is represented by Cancer, but my fourth house is in Capricorn, which we have conflict there because those are dual, they're opposite ends of the pendulum. Cancer is all about house and home, where Capricorn is all about work and striving to achieve and building.
Mhm.
Um, so now we see where I am conflicted on all levels. Um, because Capricorn is an earth sign associated with discipline, responsibility, ambition, and structure. It values practical, hard work, and long-term goals. Um, So what we do is we combine these two elements with like home and family dynamics with Mars retrograded in the fourth house, you might experience conflict and tension within your family and home environment. These issues may not be openly addressed, leading to a need for introspection and internal resolution. Oh, so usually Mars is an outward expressive thing, right? But because it's retrograde, it's going to be more in my sign, it's going to be more of an internal struggle than so much on the outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so it says for this particular uh placement, overall Mars retrograde in the fourth house of Capricorn suggests a period of introspect and re-evaluation in areas related to home, family, and personal foundation, with the emphasis on achieving long-term stability and security.
Which makes a lot of sense for you.
Absolutely. Like this way, if I feel that's funny, interesting. So that's what I need to work on is I need to work on more of the foundation and security in my household, in my own eternal, like I don't need to necessarily make my house more secure. I need to make my home inside of myself more secure as well. Because these are the things that I'm lacking. So I um don't have a very supportive I- how do I say this? Maybe it's more like I don't have a really strong boundaries in myself. So that's where my security tends to be a little bit lacking, which in turns makes me like more of seeking that external kind of thing. So I put up strong boundaries, kind of harsh, like, uh, so with me, I need to look at more of my insecurities, and beef those up a little bit. And that's how I could balance that out.
I'm sorry, what your Mars was in Capricorn?
Hmm.
Which is Mars is exalted in Capricorn too, right? Even though it's
It is,
retrograde.
right.
How interesting.
So that it just means it's more powerful in my
Makes
in my
sense.
insecurity. Um, so I think we need to really start to work with this planet in a way that it's kind of like working with either snakes or alligators. Like you always know that you're going to get bit at some point, right? So working with this planet would be a way of like kind of observing, but then also realizing that like if I brush alligator's mouth, they're automatically going to snap, and it's just the way they are, right?
Yep.
So we take how it is and work around that the best that we can to utilize it the best we can, right? Like if I take a hammer and I know how to use it to build a house, to build a structure, then that is how I want to use it. But I also can hurt myself by like if I hit my finger with it. We still have that aspect of like danger. It's just really it's really sitting down with what it truly is in essence and working with it and utilizing it in the best way that we can work with it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, Mars in general is a great motivator, is the
Right.
great motivator. It's the one that
Right.
when you're low on drive or you're struggling, if you lean into that Mars energy, you're gonna get shit done because
Right.
it's like so much passion, so much of this like movement, action. It's not a
Mhm.
steady, we want you to sit and chill like Venus would be and enjoy the roses. It's like, get through those fucking roses. You got shit to do, dude. Let's go.
Well, it would be the person trimming the roses. The garden, do you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
gardener that is actually like cutting off the dead leaves and refining it so it is beautiful at the end of the day, kind of thing.
absolutely. And speaking of that, like I also have that your Mars sign can dictate how comfortable you are with um how comfortable you feel when taking initiative with others too,
Hmm.
which makes a ton of sense because I've never thought about Mars like that, where it's like when you look at it in that house, in that sign, it's going to help you to understand where you're going to be comfortable, where you feel like you can take initiative and like you can work with it to be able to do that.
Right. Well,
Mhm.
and what about your sign? Like, how do you feel like that has played out in your sign?
I haven't read a ton up on my Mars in the eighth house because I still personally am, I feel like I have a pretty good wrap under like what the planets are and like the signs, but not so much the houses. So I actually do have it pulled up um because I was curious. I was gonna read it after too, because like me being Mars Libra in the eighth house, um says that you're likely to have desires that spring from the need for social interaction and that your actions are likely to be influenced by your need for social relationships and harmony, because even though the eighth house is our death and rebirth house, I'm also Libra within Mars. So that's where a lot of like that intensity comes from when it comes to my friends.
Hmm.
um says this often manifests in a certain grace, balance, and harmony in your actions because you're motivated to please others and you are careful not to cause social disharmony through your actions. Now, that sounds lovely, right? The problem being is that that is a lot of where my people pleasing comes into play. And this, where it comes into my internal, is I am also really bad at setting boundaries with friends or people in general that I truly love because I don't ever want to see them upset. So then it causes internal distress if it's something that I don't want to do. Like, let's say a good example is I've had to learn really hard not to just say yes to everything. Hey, we're doing this thing. Are you going to be there? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep, I'm going to be there because like I know my somebody wants me there. And so like I've had to learn to say, well, let me look at my calendar. Actually, Nicole helped me with that a lot because I was really bad about it and I would not take time for myself. So then I'd be getting really frustrated with myself and like, and then it would
Hmm.
go from internal to external, of course. And so then I've been getting frustrated with everything around me or people around me. And it's all because I put myself in a position to people please as opposed to making sure that like I'm working with that to make sure that I feel like I have harmony within myself as well.
Hmm.
Um, with it being in the eighth house, it says it's generally well placed. This view, however, seems to be greatly influenced by Mars' association with desire and sexuality. And the eighth house is traditionally the house of sexuality, and Mars placement here suggests a masculine sexuality that's in its element. It says following this line of thought, it suggests that you're generally able to intimately express your sexuality, which tracks. Um, so it says another dynamic that it suggests by the Mars in the eighth house is the enhancement of your ability to act through the power that comes from intensity and focus. This is a power that generally comes from within you and allows you to act with force and confidence. It's your intimate involvement with your actions and with the things or situations acted upon that is the source of this power and action. So having Mars in the eighth house, you're generally not afraid to act. And you know off often intuitively both the appropriate form and the ultimate consequences of your actions. So surprisingly, it's pretty well placed thanks to the eighth house influence too. Um, because yeah, I guess that also tracks for me too. Usually I like if something needs to get done, usually I'm the one that's in there trying to do it. Or I
Hmm.
do feel that movement immediately to be like trying to fix it, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
Now where that also would be something that I would have to work through. And I've really trained on this too, is the whole, we've talked about it before. When somebody comes to you with a problem, it's asking, do you want my advice or do you want me to just listen? Because of course,
Mhm.
my first reaction is, well, have you tried this? Or like, what about this fix? What about this fix? I also have this fix. It's like, I don't want any of those. I just needed somebody to listen to me. That's been something I've had to work really hard on in life, is
Mhm.
just trying to be there for people and what's best for them, not in the way that I feel immediately called to act to,
Right,
you
right.
know. So yeah, I definitely am going to end up reading more on this because the article I found also has the insecurities
Mhm.
of having a Mars in the eighth house. But like, it says this will lead you to crave intimacy, but you find none that you can obtain. Your ego will always stand in the way of experiencing intimacy, but you
It's just
are
me.
assist me. But you are not willing to give up your ego. Instead, you're determined to be the master of others, whether this other is your partner, your associates, or the situation in which you find yourself. With Mars in the eighth house, you cannot let go because in your eyes, this would be losing control. Oof.
Right.
Therefore, all of your actions are bent upon securing and maintaining control. In this way, you seek to tie yourself to others. Yeah. It's like, it's good to know this stuff because it is definitely an insecurity, right? Is when you tie yourself to others, you feel more secure. Um,
Mhm.
when you control how that's being done, you feel more secure because you're in control of it. You don't have that like loose reins of just like trusting your horse to know where to go. You're like, no, I'm going to tell you, even though the horse already knows where the hell to go. And you're trying to tell it, no, we're going this way. And it's trying to go this way because it's done it. It knows where to go.
Right.
So yeah, I'm
Or it
excited to
knows
read
the
more about
fastest
this.
way to go. Like this is the whole thing with the universe too. And when we do spells and we want stuff that we desire, and we're telling the universe how we want it, like how to get it. And no.
And the universe is like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? We already had it figured out. You're gonna have it in 2 days. And you're like,
Eh,
well, I figured if we go this way, we can have it now. And it's like, cool, you can have it in 2 months. How about that instead?
right, because you're like, oh, if I do it this way, I'll get it. And they're like, yeah, but if you do it this way, you'll get it sooner. And you're like, oh,
Hmm.
that's how we stand in our own way.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to read up on like stuff like this because it really gives you, I feel like when I first got my first natal chart done, or my first one that I really liked, I loved the reading and I felt like it was very much it made me look at myself in a way that wasn't so direct of the like, this is your issues, you need to fix yourself, where you have like the spotlight of fixing yourself on you, you know? It was kind of like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I do that. And then you realize like, holy crap, that's something I don't really love about myself. Now that's an opportunity to work with it and try to
Hmm.
like the boundaries thing, right? Like, oh, you figure out over time, I just gotta have better boundaries within myself of like, you don't have to feel bad for doing that. That's boundary. Like if you don't want to do that, don't do that kind of thing or
Hmm.
things like that. It's cool.
Yeah. And it just helps us not like overindulge in like or ex give too much of our energy away, like
Yeah.
the over socializing and stuff like that. And it is hard because we want to please people and we want to have a good time and we also have FOMO, so we don't want to miss out either.
Yeah.
So that's a whole like realm of like so many, I don't know, like pots to give coins to. Like it's so many that it's like
Yes.
spread yourself thin kind of thing. But like it's hard because like we I don't know if it's for this for like for you, but like I tend to think that like if I do this, this will make me cooler. If I do this, it'll I won't be such, because I think we have this thing of like, especially as we get older and stuff like that, it's like, oh, I'm getting older. So now you're fighting this and you're like, well, I'm going to go out like I was 27 or 22 and like go out and hit the bars and do all this stuff. And it's like, but what am I trying to do? And I find this with women too. If we get, when we get older, and especially if we're single and we're older, heaven forbid, we are
Yeah,
single and older at the same time
right.
because it's a weird dynamic that I have found that we are like, well, I have wrinkles and I've got a little chub on me and I've got, you know, my skin and the way my face looks and there's a whole the insecurities that we have as older women are very funny to me because it's like, what are you trying to attract? A teenager? Are you trying to attract that 21-year-old? Because that's what you're saying right now. You're saying
And
that,
you also cannot hide to like before you keep going, because like this, I all I can hear in my head is, well, I just don't like myself. No, that's not
right,
fair to yourself. Stop saying that, because what that does is you're completely negating and bypassing the fact that you only care because of your perspective from others.
absolutely,
Because if
absolutely.
you were making yourself happy, you would do things and not talk about it, and it wouldn't matter to other people, right? It wouldn't be this
Hmm.
outward projection that you're giving to, let's say, your hairdresser or somebody about how upset you are with yourself and your body. It's because you internally do care, and that's okay, but you have to recognize that it is that. It's not just you putting yourself under a lens, it's you putting
Yeah,
the lens from other people on yourself, if that makes
right.
sense.
Well, yeah, because you're projecting out what you're doing to yourself. So you
Yes.
automatically assume that they're doing it to you, right? It's all a
Mm-hmm.
projection. So this is the thing is these are meat suits. They don't matter. Whether I have makeup on or don't have makeup on, are you going to talk to me? Do you love me? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no like, there's none of that kind of things of like, as we think about this, there's no realm in it. Like, if my daughter didn't have makeup on, her hair was a certain way, or she dressed a certain way, I would never love her any less.
Yes, exactly.
So, whether she looks like this, whether she looks like that, whether she is like, these are not the issue. The issue is how you're talking to yourself. So I feel like we could use Mars and Venus in these ways to not only build up the confidence and the bravery to be confident in the world without burning it down,
Right.
which I like to do. Uh but we can use the grace and beauty with Venus and project that through instead of projecting, such the critical part of what we think is beauty. Like we spend as a society, we spend billions, if not trillions of dollars on our face alone, right? Because we're not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And which is fine. Like obviously I have work done. Like it's not like I'm saying don't do that.
Well, yeah.
What I'm saying
It's
is why are you doing it?
yeah, it's the difference between why. So like I'm gonna give a little thing here that I haven't talked about to really anybody. Nobody knows I did this because it was genuinely for myself. I got Botox for myself. And I haven't told anybody. The only person that knows is my partner, because I didn't want to hear anything about it. One, because
Hmm.
I only did it for myself because I wanted to see if I liked it. Two, I wanted to feel better about my skin for myself, because there were things that I was just like, I don't want to look at this and feel bad about myself right now. And this is what I'm feeling. So I'm going to go make myself feel better. And I did it. And it was something that was genuinely for me. Do you get what I'm saying? It wasn't for
Hmm.
people. So it's not like you don't, when you do something for yourself, by yourself, it feels really good because the why behind it is for me.
Right. And
not
you
for
didn't
the
have to
world.
tell anybody. So this is truly for you,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't like you're like, I got Botox, like everybody, like you didn't
Yeah.
have to tell anybody. You legit did it for yourself. And that was
Yeah.
it. That's
To
all that mattered.
And to be honest, I do feel a little uncomfy saying it right now and like outing myself, but it's like it's one of those good examples where it's like when you start doing that stuff, you start working with it and you start realizing where it's coming from and why you're doing it. You either stop caring less because you're like, I don't give a fuck if I go to the bar with Nicole and I don't have my eyebrows on. I don't fucking care because she doesn't
Mhm.
fucking care. And truly, when you think about it, everybody else around you is so self-concerned that they're not looking at you and going, oh my God. And talking about, oh my God, she has no eyebrows. Wow, like look at that girl. She has no eyebrows. And that's all they're talking about because they're probably only self-concerned. So then that's like where that
Mhm.
comfortability starts coming into because you realize when I go out to the bar with Nicole, I'm throwing on eyebrows because I don't want people to see me without eyebrows because I care about what they think. And then when you
Right.
start realizing that and it really sets in, you're like, that's fucking stupid, dude.
Right. And
Not doing that.
we also bypass that whole thing. Well, I just don't feel comfortable with that. Or I don't, and
Yes.
it's like, okay, calm down. Like, I understand that the point is that you don't feel comfortable with yourself. I get that. But also, like, don't use it as a bypass either, because that's exactly what it ends up being is a bypass. Like, well, I just do it for me and I just do it. Well, it's toxic and not necessarily about the eyebrows, but like,
Yeah.
it's like I guess the most extreme one would be, and nobody would say this, but they're like, I drink so I can do this. And it's like, that's so toxic,
Yes.
you know, but you blanket, well, that's just what I feel and what I want to do. And it's like,
It's a crap excuse.
it really does end up being a crap excuse because eventually it just ends up, that's why we have habits. It ends up being this habit that you just continuously do over and over again that is not for your growth or for your well-being. It actually ends up becoming, like taking psychedelics is a perfect example. So at
Mm.
first you do it and you're like, oh my God, I have bigger thoughts and I've gotten to a different realm and I understand it better and like all that stuff. And then the more you use it, the more you use it as a crutch,
Yep.
that's when it gets to be more of an addiction and you're using it like, oh, it helps me center. Oh, it helps me meditate. Oh, it helps me blah, blah, blah. When it's really not.
Right. Exactly.
It's now gotten to a point, same thing, but now it's gotten to a point where it's detriment and not in your benefit anymore.
100%. That's like, I guess going to even with like the Botox thing and filler thing, when you start doing it because you're looking for an outward projection, that's when you start overindulging and you start becoming like something where you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm still not feeling good about myself. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And the problem isn't the fact that you're not liking this or you're not feeling like you have enough, like your lips aren't full enough, your skin's not smooth enough. It's because you're still looking for the outward projection back to come back and say, wow, you look so great. You did such a great thing to your body. Do you get what I'm saying? It's not
Yes.
like Botox is bad, fillers bad, tattoos are bad, getting like your eyebrows tattooed on or lip blushing, whatever cosmetic thing you want to do is bad. It's the why behind it that you
It's the
can
why behind it.
overindulge in, and then you can end up creating such a bad thing for yourself. So you make yourself
Right.
feel even worse.
Right. Because, like, having drinks with friends is fine. Having drinks under the bed and that hiding bottles in places, and that's where it's bad, right? Like,
Going
they're
broke because you're
going
spending money
broke
on this
because of your
stuff.
drugs, right? That's when drugs are bad. When you're doing
Yes.
things that is not in your best interest, like whether it's like keeping up your rent, whether it's keeping your lights on, whether, those like, obviously we know functioning alcoholics, we, we know these people, but which I'm also okay with. Like, if you're a functioning drug addict, I'm okay with it.
Pop off.
Because, like, to me, this is a hard world, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, if that's the way you found to do things and you're still functioning in this world the way you want to function in this world, so be it. Because I'm not the one to tell you, all your boxes are checked. You're a happy person. Okay.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with that 100%. It's like any kind of, I guess, what do I want to say? Like, I don't want to say drug. I want to say any kind of life enhancement. I
Right,
guess.
right, right.
If you're still, if it helps you function, because like, let's be honest, I'm one of those people that I don't want a raw dog life. I can't do it. There are some vices that I have that help me move along, keep moving,
Well,
keep
and
pushing through.
that's the whole thing. Even with like antidepressants and all these other things that we take, they're meant to help you move through your traumas so they're not so raw.
Yes.
The downside of that is when you take them, but you're not doing the work. So the trauma is still like, hey, but now we made them small. So now you're using it as a crutch and you can't do it without, like it just sits there and gets pressurized, I feel,
Here. I
because
concur.
you're not listening.
Yes.
You're not listening to your body, you're not listening to yourself, you're not listening
Oh,
anymore.
yeah, I agree. Sorry, I hit the table and it moved and I was like, whoa, scared me.
I was like, what's happening? Are you okay? What's going on?
You were looking down and I have it because it was like a little earthquake happened over here. Um,
I
I don't know how we got on our soapbox, but I
we
know that it
did
had
get
to
on
do
our
with like using Mars's energy as well as Venusing together to help us move forward. I do know that.
yes.
So if you
So
guys track that, congrats.
Mars happened. We get passionate about stuff, and that's
We
the way
get
it goes.
for real. We just want y'all to
So
love yourselves.
Mars is associated with red blood, the muscular system, adrenal glands, body heat, sexual organs. The planet is often considered as responsible for aggression. Oh, aggression. Wait, hold on. My words. Aggressive sex drive. It's only because I didn't want to say aggressive and sex drive all in the same sentence, is really what it
Yes.
was. Um, the glyph for Mars is the cross of matter, is transformed into an arrow and drawn upon a circle to represent the ascendance of the material over the spiritual. It is generally reviewed as the universal symbol for the male. That's very interesting. So, if we have the cross, the equalized cross, that is the sign for matter. So what they've done is they've moved it so that matter is over spirit, and it it is formed in an arrow to show action.
Mm,
And that's also
mm,
why it's also just like with the male symbol is action.
I like that.
Hold please. The correspondence to Mars is Aries and Scorpio. Tuesday is the day of Mars. So if you ever notice that Monday is moon day, so that's more of a reflective day. And Mondays we always like think about the weekend that we did, blah blah blah. Tuesday, if you've ever noticed, or now you will after this, is it's kind of aggressive. And that's because it's ruled by Mars. Like
It
I
makes a
always
lot of
know,
sense.
right. It's like now you're really in the workday. You really got to have an action where like we've already done Monday, which we know is that day. And so Tuesday's really into the work week. It's into the week. We're really getting in action.
Tuesdays are spicy.
They are
They're a
spicy.
spicy day.
Watch the traffic on a Tuesday. And and you'll notice that like it's a little aggressive, like how people change lanes. There's a lot more accidents and crossovers and cutoffs and stuff like that. It's super interesting. Well, I found it super interesting. Colors are crimson, maroon, orange, pink, and red. The chakra is the root, the sacral, the solar plex, and the throat. The terror, it is the devil, the emperor, and the tower. Metals are iron and steel, which makes sense. I don't know if I want to go through all the rest of this. We did find out that the woodpecker is one of the associated animals, and I was
Yeah,
like very weird about that.
me too.
Because like why?
I was like, what the fuck? Why?
So what they said is because the mighty woodpecker could take down a oak tree by just its beak. And I'm like, wow, they're
Yeah,
not wrong. They're
no.
not wrong. Um, Also the ram and the wolf. The intentions and powers are action, aggression, anger, assertiveness, battle and war, beginnings, courage, death, defense, desire, determination, emotions, endurance, sexual energy, immunity, immunity, amenity. Sure. Growth, justice, life, lust, magic, general defense, dragon, and sex magic, passion, power, sex and sexuality, um, skills, strength, and willpower. And overall, this is usually the masculine energy.
The only two that I have that weren't mentioned is raw desire also lives in your Mars, as well as raw instincts. And what I mean by raw instincts is what makes you move into action without thinking twice.
It's what do they call that? Instinct.
Yep, this is like the raw version of it, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
you're moving, you don't even think twice about it. This is where that comes from.
So in the Kabbalah, I say that wrong every time.
Potato, potato, tomato, tomato.
This is what we're working with, folks. I don't know what to tell you.
We ain't judging you.
So, associated on the Tree of Life is Geburah. I found this very interesting too. Geburah and the other planet, which is ruled by Jupiter, when you're standing in front of the Tree of Life, which, like, here's a reminder, like, this is what it looks like. So, the funny thing is, like, your head is like right about here. So Geburah is here on your right shoulder where no, vice versa. Left shoulder, right shoulder. I think that's right. No, Geburah's on this hand. This is my right. So it's right hand. I'll get it straight. It's fine. This is your left hand. So, but what I've noticed is because the Mars and war and action and all that kind of stuff is so looked at as being evil and associated with like badness or what we've considered bad because it causes harm and strife to human beings, we considered it evil, right? So, the old saying where you had a devil on your shoulder and an
Yeah,
angel.
yeah.
So, I feel like this is where it has translated down from because in the tree of life, it sits, Mars would sit right on the shoulder where Jupiter, the planet of like beneficence and joy and like
Expansion.
mercy and expansion, all that stuff that sits on that other shoulder. So it made me think of like devil and angel. And I was like, huh, that's very interesting.
Agreed.
Gebera is the strength and severity. Um, the magical image is a mighty warrior and his chariot. Um, it is in the center of the pillar of severity. So the pillars of, or the planets that are definitely associated with severity will be Saturn, Mars, and Mercury. Although Mercury is kind of one of those trans planets where it's both, it can be beneficial or it can be not. Um, this fifth path is called the radical intelligence because it resembles unity, hold on. Unit-ing, unit-ing. It's like you, anyway, a woman. It's combined with Bana, which is Saturn. So Saturn would be
Mm.
the most, the strongest. This is where we get time, boundaries, and understanding, um, which emanates from a primordial depths of Hokmah and wisdom. So as we go down the tree of life, we have God first, and then we have Kethra. It comes down to wisdom, and then goes into, as it projects into the darkness, into Saturn. This is where it's birthed forth, um, as we're going down the tree of life and into the material world. There's a lot more on that, and I'm not going to go into it. So, um, the archangel is Camiel, the burner of God. The order of angel is Seraphine, the fiery serpent. Mars, and then the spiritual of experience is the vision of power. And the virtue energy is courage, where the vice is cruelty. So that's where we have to be very careful about where we're sitting on it. We don't want to, it's okay to be, to have courage, but it's not okay to be cruel to people. And that's where we have to like kind of find our balance in it, in the
Yeah.
power. This would be somebody that like, if you've practiced for years how to wield a sword and you just give it to a person that has never, or like a gun, this would be a very much of a thing of like, I know how to respect and use a gun in the proper place, where like you give somebody a gun that has no idea and they end up hurting people's feelings and hurting, do you know what I mean? Like you can
Yeah.
see the correlation of like, just because you can get power doesn't mean you know how to use it.
Yeah.
We have the fours. In the tarot card readings, we have the 4 5s. So when these come up into a tarot card readings, the 5 of Wands is strife, the 5 of Wands or cups is loss of pleasure, the 5 of Swords is defeat, and the 5 of Pentacles is earthly troubles. All of these, even the number 5 is all about transition and change. So when you see it, it's not necessarily going to be bad, even though we like to put that label on it. It really means that we need to cut out things that no longer serve us so that we can grow into number 6. We have to, we've grown 1 through 5 or 1 through 4, which 4 is balance. But now that we grow just a little bit more into 5, there's stuff that we're going to have to cut off so that we can grow into 6 and 7 and 8. But there's going to be a change, a loss. Like there's stuff that you're going to have to get rid of to change that, to kind of realign what your goal is in the long run. Um, that is what I have for, I think that's all we need. That's what I have for Mars.
Yay. Now we're moving into Venus.
Into Venus. Oh, hold please. There's a damsel in distress.
Oh, that's okay. Do you want me to just start going through the stuff I got while you're doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, yes.
Okay, so Venus, when it comes to Venus, um, Venus is your love sign. It can be as simple as that, but there's obviously a lot more. So, let's go into the story of Venus, because if you don't know, Venus is again a Roman goddess. And Venus has long been considered like auspicious, which explains why the ancient Romans named this planet after the goddess of love, beauty, sex, pleasure, and money. So although Venus is depicted as also this is the story that's like not the great story of Venus. So if you want to skip over the next 5 minutes, skip over the next 5 minutes, or I guess one. But although Venus is depicted as breathtakingly magnificent, her story isn't particularly appealing. And according to classical mythology, after Uranus, the father of the sky, was castrated by his son Kronos, more commonly known as Saturn, Uranus's testicles were thrust into the ocean, and Uranus's genitalia, along with his blood and semen, formed a thick, dense mist from which Venus, or you could consider Venus Aphrodite, emerged, and there birthed Venus. Um, Venus is going to be your passionate romantic who simply loves to be in love. So, like, think
Mhm.
about like lush lather things. I just want to be in love. I want to experience love, all like the big emotions behind like the passionate side of romance. Um Venus, she governs our courtship and adoration, as well as our personal taste and our aesthetics. So she's going to represent your values, including like your relationship with finances and material possessions as well. I read this part and I had to keep it in here because of course Nicole's Capricorn and I loved it. So I read that skeptical readers and they mentioned they were looking at Capricorns were right to be suspicious of Venus and in thinking that Venus's functions sound way too good to be true, right? And so they said, although fledgling astrologers, so that's our beginners, are going to often look to Venus as a measure of long-term compatibility, it's a common mistake. Even I've made that for sure. And they said that the truth is Venus reveals our idealizations of love and beauty. So through Venus's desires, though I keep doing this, though Venus's desires are alluring, they don't necessarily translate to reality or perhaps what is sustainable for our souls.
Mhm.
So I also saw that this reader will refer to Venus as Marie Antoinette. She wants to be in a lavish place, eating straw,
Mhm.
like everything that she loves, having the fan, waved on her and just living this luxurious, lavish life that's not going to be sustainable, but is like fun in the moment and makes us happy in the
Yeah.
moment. And she explained it really well as saying like Venus wears rose-colored glasses and lacks the perspective to distinguish our wants from our needs.
Mhm.
And I was like, ooh, yeah, that makes
Well,
sense.
it's even very interesting because Marie Antoinette, we know the ending of that story, right? Like
Yeah.
she overindulged
Mm-hmm.
and she died. Like
And
and died.
I
So we
also
can see too much of like a good thing is right.
yeah, too much of a good thing is not healthy. It's
Mm-mm.
like she described it too as like Venus being devoted to the pursuit of pleasure. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, that was a good way to say that. So
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
where you're going to use Venus at, it can be really helpful to redecorate your room or host a party, but it's not logical nor emotional. It just wants to be adored. So there's no
Right.
logic behind the adoration and where you're seeking it from and why you want that adoration. And there's no emotion behind it. It's just literally like a horse with blinders on food, 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 water, 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 water. And like that's doesn't see all the other things around it that can be hurting it. It's just like water, 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 water. Um, Now with all that being said, Venus is indulgent, but it's not deceitful, okay? This planet can help us read, it can define our relationships with the beautiful things in life. So it's not going to lie to you and it's not going to make you indulge in things that aren't things you want. It's just going to show you where the indulgence like doesn't have boundaries, I guess you could say. So like you could really put your Venus on a pedestal and be like, well, I need this thing and to make my life happy when it's like, and I need it all the time. And I need, if I don't get it all the time, then it's going to be a problem for me. When in reality, it's showing you what you could need and like what could help with your happiness, but it's not the one thing you need to shine a light on and focus on.
Right. Because again, this goes to the whole thing. It's like you over, when you overdo it, you lose that.
Hmm.
You lose that pleasure
Yeah,
because it starts to numb the senses and you know, like you just don't, it doesn't have the same effect. So it almost, at some point, if you don't have the inner workings of it, it becomes a hollow shell.
exactly. And then if you're completely looking away from it and saying like, "Oh, I don't need that," it actually this planet reminds us that at the end of the day, we deserve love. So she's going to govern our senses and refine our sensibilities to remind us to pause and like smell the roses. Hey, by the way, you're way too indulgent on this side. Come smell the roses. Like, remember, you deserve love at the end of the
Hmm.
day. So there's like this good and bad where it's like we need her because we need to know what we enjoy and we need to feel love because everybody wants to feel loved and deserves to be loved. But at the same time, like Nicole said, you overindulge and then you're an empty shell because nothing's going to make you happy anymore because you've overdone it.
Right. Well, and it's like, what is all this work good for then? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, why am I doing all this stuff? All this like hard work, this building, this like, we know, especially now that I look around, like, if we look at architect as, you know, back in, I don't know, before the 1900s, it was beautiful. They
Yeah.
took, you know, people took their time with it. They made it purposeful. Like it's where art and purpose came together and we really like put it forth our hearts and desire, and that was what it was about. It wasn't about doing it quickly. It was about it being beautiful as well. And
Yeah.
now I was really caught off guard when I went, and I think I've said this story before, is like went to a funeral for my uncle, and as I walked in there, it was very cold. It was very fast foody. It was very like, this is a square box and we've got the same trim that we have in an office space. Even in office spaces that works. Like they don't have any aesthetic pleasing structures. And I think we don't believe that we need to buy or contribute to seeing something that is very beautiful every day.
Yeah.
Instead, we're completely only focusing on what needs to be done.
Right.
And this is not how we, as we well can see in the establishment of like human beings, that it's not good for like the mental health. It's not good. Like we can see how this is all starting to like really affect the fruit, then the fruit being us, on
Yeah.
how we live our lives day to day.
It's become about functionality, not about like pleasure.
Right. Like
No joy.
why to go to a play? Why have plays?
Right.
And it's like we're trying to stuff out. It's almost like we're trying to stuff out the feelings. Well, like feelings don't mean anything and I can't hold it and I can't sell it. I mean, I can sell it temporarily, but I can't sell it like it's not a sustaining feeling. Instead, we're going straight for like, no, we're just going to do this. Everybody stand in line. Everybody's going to
Hmm.
wear the same thing because then we can't have jealousy. No, like we're cutting out all of individuality so that you don't feel different than I feel. And you don't have like, it's very interesting how it's kind of like trying to go to this like stagnant, sterile way and how much we need art and beauty and things that please us in just an eye, through our eyes.
Hell yeah, dude. I agree 100%. It's like something, it's so simple. It's like you have a patio, you put down a rug that you like, and now you want to be outside more because you enjoy it more because you love the feeling and you love the look. And now you've made this so aesthetically pleasing that you spend more time there and you're way happier instead of being like, I don't even want to do that. I don't want to go outside. It doesn't feel good to me. Or it's like, you do something just because it's what's trending. And you're like, it's okay. It's all right. It's like, ugh. Venus is like, ugh. It's not just all right. We don't want just all right. We want you to be like, that
No.
is so pretty and I love it and I want to be out there and I want to enjoy the roses.
Well, it helps get you into action, right? Like it helps you. This is where Mars and Venus really like, you can see why they go like hand to hand because one kind of like lubricates the other. It
Yeah.
doesn't, like it kind of softens, like, I'm not going to burn down this bridge, but maybe I'll put a nice gate over it so I don't
Yes.
have to cross it anymore, right? Like, I don't have to kill it. I just need it to be over there and I don't have to go there.
Yeah, exactly. The only other few things I have is that this is where our divine feminine energy sits, where Mars is the divine masculine, this is the divine feminine. Again, a matter of physical gender or identification. We all have those two energies in us. I also have that while the moon governs our emotional security, Venus is more about like the whining and dining. Your moon house is like your emotional side. Your Venus house is like your pleasure house. And then your Mars is going to be the action to that pleasure.
Mhm.
So this is like beauty and romance, seduction of values, luxury. This is also, I'm so glad you brought this up earlier because I can't believe I had forgotten about that. But this is where like a lot of your pleasure with your fashion and your aesthetic resides. And there was this
Mhm.
thing that went around on TikTok where you put, I think Nicole has it if it's still up, what you can put into AI and they'll pull all this stuff from different websites and things that will help tell you what like how to dress for your Venus sign.
Yeah, so it is, you put into AI, what is my Venus sign and how can I dress according to the aesthetic? Please give me colors, styles, and online stores that I can shop at to achieve this look. What kind of accessories suit me best on my Venus sign, and what style of makeup suits me best on my Venus sign?
Ugh, it's really good. What I'll give you guys too is if you haven't used like Chat GPT and these like AI websites yet, is you can keep going after that and like ask more questions. So like or like refine the search in a way to where like for me, like because I'm a Virgo Venus, it was a lot of earth tones, a lot of clean lines, a lot of like things that I wouldn't normally wear. And so I asked it for a more edgier style within my Venus sign, or like you could say like a more alternative style, things like that. Also the websites that it gave me were out of my price range when it comes to clothes, if I ever did want to go and like focus on that. And so I asked for other websites that were not as expensive.
Mhm.
So just like a little tip with it.
Well, and apparently right now something's in retrograde that makes you want to, I think it's Pluto, that makes, well, at least it's making me want to like address my image. Like
Mm.
I feel old and stagnant. I feel like it's not serving me anymore. Like, and I have been inspired to kind of change that aesthetic.
It makes sense because all of a sudden, why am I over here like, I think I could do a goth mini bang and I would really love it. And I'm like, I should change my hair. And I miss like dressing super goth and I miss like I need to change my whole aesthetic right now because I'm not liking anything. So like what if we do a goth baby bang and super shag and like all this stuff?
Watch that Dead Boy Detective. There's a cute little butcher woman in there that is very gothy, and I love her so much. But she has like the bangs.
What was that show? I have it up somewhere. Dead
Dead
boy.
Boy Detectives. Which if you haven't watched it, it's super cute. It was very it's about ghosts helping ghosts. It's just very cute, very aesthetically pleasing.
She's so
It
pretty.
isn't she pretty?
God, you keep finding all the cute girls.
Oh yeah, because that's what I do.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is.
My job.
Is it your Venus in Taurus?
No, my Venus is in Aquarius, but
Oh,
the reason why it's my job is because I'm a Capricorn sun, a Libra moon. I'm sorry, a Libra ascending and a Taurus moon.
yeah, there it is.
So I have Saturn, but I have two Venus ruling planets at the same time.
That love pretty things.
Yes.
Um, I only have one more thing, and this is just about natal charts in general that I really quick just wanted to throw out there that I love the way that this person had said this, so I took her quote verbatim. Your birth chart is a fully functioning ecosystem. The planets tell a story, and as you continue to study their positions, signs, locations, and relationships to other celestial bodies, you'll start to read the narrative. I've never
Right.
thought about it as a fully functioning ecosystem.
Yeah, I started to say it more as like a soup because it translates a little bit better. Like I don't understand ecosystem. I mean, I do because like it would be, I guess I could say it in a way of like how you create a fish tank.
That's exactly what I thought of. That's so funny because when I read that, I thought immediately of an aquarium. I was like, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
fully functioning system. Like you've got all your
Right,
parts in there.
right. So I try to say it as like soup because people understand food way more. It's easier, right? So I'm always like, well, you got a little more, like when they say you got a dash of that and a dash of this and a dash of that, that's exactly what this is. So, like, my soup might have a little more pepper in it than yours because of the placements that we have, right?
Hmm.
So, you have the essence, but then you dress it up into something else. So, like, like my Venus is in the fifth house, which is about creativity. Hold, please. I know there's a thing back here. Fifth house is governs creativity, correspondence to artistic, warm-hearted Leo. So Leo is the one that really like rules this house. The fifth house is also rules children, pet, all objects of affection, pleasure, such as holidays, art, sports, and gambling. So with my Venus being in the fifth house, plus it is flavored by Aquarius, which is unique. It's uh
Unorthodox.
it's unorthodox. I do a lot of things that are weird. Um, especially in my Venus or with my Venus or something like that. It is how my passions are um translated. It's how I communicate to the artistic world.
Mm.
Um, and how much I find that's why I get super critical about things because I'm trying to make it aesthetically beautiful. This is also what helps me be a really good um hairdresser or anything that deal with beauty is the fact that like I can take away things and like I'm always trying to refine myself even. I'm always just trying I'm always in the state of refining. And doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's people or if it's me. I'm always in a state of refinement. Um and I do it unorthodoxically because of my uh Aquarius.
She
So
likes the
that's
weird and unorthodox.
I do like the weird. I like it.
For my Virgo Venus and is in, or yeah, my Venus is in Virgo in the seventh house. So I'm very, yeah, type A, very type
Mhm.
A. We got to do it this way or otherwise it's not right.
Mhm.
I have a plan. I have a plan. I made a plan for us. And if
Made
we
a
follow it, it's going to be
plan.
perfect.
I did my plan that made a plan that I have a plan for.
I have 4 plans and we can't do one without the other 3.
That's right. That's right. Um, so Venus rules like fashion, money, finance, and we forget that Venus rules money and finances.
Yes.
Um, but it makes sense because it also rules like value. So not
Hmm.
only the value of yourself, but the value of what you're creating and all that kind of stuff. Possession, self-worth, food, desserts, one-on-one relationships, pleasure, beauty, uh, s- stability, and creativity. Um, so I don't, I realize that this list kind of feels a little bit, what's the word I want? Suf um, surface level. Like it seems very uh like not authentic and not like it has no depth to it, right? Like it's very like superficial.
Right.
What I want to say to that is because I've heard this a lot in like definitely the beauty industry and stuff like that. Like it's almost like you're not supposed to have beauty if you are to be taken seriously, which is as women, we know that this to be a fact because it's been a hard road about us being taken seriously in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So, um, with that being said, that's not necessarily true. And again, it goes back to like when you're using psychedelics, like how are you using it? And how are you, what is the fruit that you're producing too? If the fruit that you're producing has no substance, then you kind of have to reevaluate what you're doing and
Yeah.
why you're doing it. So, like, even fashion has a place. It's not superficial. Yes. Do I need it to stay alive? No. Does it make being alive a lot more pleasurable? Yes.
Yes.
Um, Even like money has gotten a bad rap, but we need it to survive in this world because we don't live in the 1800s. I am not to this point of where like I'm staying home and I have a ranch. It's not the place I live. I live in a different place, almost in a world in between technology and the earth and earthly stuff. So it's we really have to look at like these values that we just haphazardly like throw out there and like, well, I don't need that because whatever, right? And
Right.
if you're saying it like that, that's a defense mechanism and you need to reevaluate it.
Yep.
Um, when you're sitting in the motions of like how to balance your own person, it is really much, you're never going to get a strong, sturdy, fixed place. It seems to me more like a uh, rocker or a platform on water
Mm.
where you're always trying to kind of like balance yourself so you don't get overzealous in any one way or form. Um, so what I would do with Venus is really research your Venus, where it's the house, where it is the sign, and what Venus really carries with it. If you do this, you will find, and then sprinkle it about your life, you will find that your life is a little more pleasurable, a little more um malleable. It's not so brittle and harsh. Like you get a little more like uh lubrication in your life.
You
And
like
we
that word
all
today,
we
buddy?
all like a little lubrication. Well, it just makes sense. If we're talking
It
about
does.
Mars and Venus at the same time, lubrication is needed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, what do I need to do? Over here. Venus attributes or things that correlate with. So if you're doing a spell, these are the things you would that correlate with it. Venus is also known as the morning and the evening star. Apparently, that's because those are the best times to have sex.
Because isn't that also Lucifer?
Well, that's like another
Let
whole
me, yeah, let me
thing.
not take us there. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
excuse me? You
No,
said Venus, and I said, that's
Venus,
not right.
Venus and Lucifer, there's a relationship between Venus and Lucifer.
Mm,
Not like Venus the planet, but really, yes.
yes, I get where yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So if you want to look that
Oh,
up
I will
while
be.
okay, cool.
Yes.
I will entertain with my books. So Venus also rules Libra and Taurus. And we know this because Libra is very good at social interaction, where Taurus is very good about sitting in luxury and wanting the finer things in life. Friday is the day of Venus. The elemental is Earth, which is interesting. The chakra is the brow, heart, sacral, and throat. Your tarot cards will be the Empress, Justice, and the Star. Um, your goddesses will be Ishtar and Venus, Aphrodite. Um, your issues, intention, and powers are affections, agricultural, astral realm, attraction, beauty, beginning, compassion, connection, creative, desires, emotion, energy, receptive, sexual energy, fertility, friend, friendship, gentleness, happiness, harmonious, kindness, love, lust, sex magic, needs, passion, pleasure, rebirth, renewal, relationships, reversals, romance, sensual, sexual, sexuality, stress, and unity. That was
Unity.
unity.
Well, I didn't find a story, but I did find that Lucifer and Venus are two names for the same planet, which is associated with light and love in ancient mythology. Lucifer means light bringer in Latin and was the name of Venus in Roman folklore. Venus was also the Roman goddess of love and the mother of another person and the legendary ancestor of the Romans. And this is the part that if I'm finding interesting at this moment is the morning star phrase of Venus the morning star phase of Venus when it appears as the brightest star in the sky was called Lucifer and was considered a dangerous time.
Oh,
Rabbit holes for later.
yes, yes, because there's also a whole thing, I think, in the Bible where they talk about, there's even a little controversy about how Jesus and Lucifer might be the same being. Yeah, there's a whole like thing on that as well. And I don't know which camp I'm in, so because I have not studied that enough to like have an opinion on it.
Same.
I just know it's there.
We know there's camps.
Right. Okay, so the planet Venus is in the tree of life is associated with Netzach, which is the seventh Sephirah. This magical image is a beautiful woman, beautiful naked woman, and the title is Victory. This is also at the foot of the Pillar of Mercy. So if Geberah was the middle of the Pillar of Severity, this is on the other extreme, and this is the Pillar of Mercy, which we all have all of these like kind and soft attributes. Not that they're less powerful, they're just a little, they don't make your head spin so much.
Yeah.
The seventh path is called the occult intelligent because it is the I don't know what that word is. Splendor. The something of splendor of the intellect virtues which are perceived by the eye of intellect and contemplation compilation of faith. The god name is Yahweh Tabaoth, the Lord of Hosts. The archangel is Haniel, the god of grace. The order of angels is the Elohim, which is just gods. Venus is the planet. The spiritual experience is vision of beauty of Tepra. The virtue is unselfishness. The vice is unchastity or lust. Where it's located is your hips, loins, and legs. I always like that word, loins.
Loins.
Loins. So this in the tarot cards, this is the 4 sevens. So the 7 of Wands is valor. The 7 of Cups is illusionary success. The 7 of Swords is unstable effort. The 7 of Pentacles is success unfulfilled. So in this place, in the 7 of the sevens, where are we? Those are eights. All right, so the 7 of Swords is kind of like we needed to cut off some things and we needed to like kind of leave a situation. 7 of Swords is valor. Or that's wands. There's 7. of Wands. So the Seven of Wands is on top of a higher ground, but you're still kind of fighting something. But you're going to be successful. It's going to take a little more passion and action to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Where the Seven of Swords, you're literally trying to leave the place. You're trying to take what you've learned and cut off the rest of it into a new um, placement. Where the Seven of Cups is almost kind of overwhelming because we are looking at a lot of things and some things are truthful and some things are not truthful. So it's almost like having too many options um where you kind of got to dig a little deeper when that comes up in a reading. Where the 7 of Pentacles is we've we've manifested many things and now we really need to hyper focus on what we want to birth. Like if I have many options, I'm going to pick and choose what I really need to streamline and focus on to make it materialize into the 8th, ninth, and 10th realm before that cycle kind of repeats itself. And I think that's all I have. That's all, folks.
That's all she wrote.
What she wrote. So if with anything, it's like you really, this is a personal deep dive for everybody. Use TikTok, use uh YouTube, use readings, use books, whatever you need to do to gain the knowledge of how you can use this best to serve you. And whether it's Venus and whether it's Mars, and really they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So using what you think is beneficial to you, but then also using what is going to be a little harder for you to achieve. And I think that's the best way to kind of like if you know this about yourself, then it would be a little easier for you to step into it.
Yeah. Use it to your benefit.
Like even if I know because my Mars is integrated, so it's reversed, so it's inside here. So my actions are easier inside here. So then my actions on the outside of me are not going to come as easy because I'm going to have like this realm is very familiar and very easy for me to navigate.
Right.
Your internal realm for me is very easy for me to navigate for you because I can see it. It's very easy. Me going on the outside and being interacting in the world takes a lot of effort for me to do that.
Right.
And not that I use that, well, now I'm just an introvert and I don't go outside. Now I'm a shut in. Like, that's obviously not healthy either. So
Right.
I just have to realize that it's going to take me a little bit more to move outside of the world.
Yes. To where for me, like my big sign that I had to work with was my Venus sign because not only is it in Virgo, it's also on a fixed star, right on it. And I will never forget this reading because it definitely made a lot of sense for me. I hold myself and my partners to high standards within relationships, every relationship, not just my intimate partner. And I had to learn how to work with it so that one, I wasn't disappointing myself or getting bummed out, or two, I wasn't fighting somebody because I got bummed out. It was like a lot to work with. So knowing that about myself and being like, oh shit, yeah, that is right. It reminds myself, it's an easy trigger to be like, oh, you're Virgo Venus, dude. You better check yourself or you're gonna wreck yourself.
Mhm, mhm,
It's been really helpful for sure.
mhm.
But yeah.
Yep. So take it or leave it. Here
Yeah.
we are, heathens at the best, and like and follow and what
Share.
share. That's it.
Share.
Share.
Like, follow, and
Share.
share us, man.
That's right. That's right.
Our next episode is on our rising signs and our Mercury signs. Go.
There we go.
There you go, peeps. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.